Dr. King, why did you decide to urge Negroes not to fight in Vietnam?
Well, I think my view has been a little distorted at that point. I haven't only urged Negroes not to fight. I feel that the war is so unjust, so abominable, so futile and bloody and costly that nobody should be fighting there. I haven't limited my concern to just the American Negro, although I know we are dying in disproportionate numbers there, and we are on the losing end both there and at home, because as long as the war in Vietnam continues, social programs will inevitably suffer here at home.
So don't you think that your remarks have created doubts about the Negro's loyalty to his country?
Well, some people may feel that. I don't think our loyalty to the country should be measured by our ability to kill. I think our loyalties to the country should be measured by our ability to lead the nation to higher heights of democracy and to the great dream of justice and humanity.
All the civil rights leaders, for various reasons, refuse or can't take a stand or have to go along with the administration. That's their business. But I must say tonight that I know that justice is indivisible. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere.
Greetings, world majority brothers and sisters. We had to break the ice that Saint Satan's fat ass was sitting on, but we back in the house. The Los Angeles Times reports that Texas Republican Lamar Smith will have oversight over deportations and arrests when he takes the gavel as chairman of the House Judiciary Committee this January. Smith plans to attack Obama's immigration law enforcement strategy, which has mostly been reducing the demand for migrant labor by focusing resources on fining and prosecuting employers who knowingly hire migratory workers. Smith's staff is preparing to hold hearings to encourage more workplace raids and to investigate allegations that immigration and customs enforcement officials manipulated numbers to inflate the department's criminal deportation statistics, recording in their annual deportation figure thousands of immigrants who had actually been deported the previous year or were expelled through alternative means, by about 25,000, they say. Therefore, we can assume that Lamar Smith doesn't really believe that Obama is deporting record numbers of migratory workers, and wants to up this number by doing more workplace raids that will actually achieve the number of 392,000 plus, which Obama's administration is purportedly feigning. And if old dirty Obama truly is deporting 392,000 people plus, well hell, all the better that we add some more to the list. This formula, although truly tired, is working. First off, the right wing establishes the status quo for the country. Then the Democratic Party follows its footsteps in order to garner more support from white people who are immigration hawks and believe the take our jobs, don't pay taxes BS. So, if the Republicans are criminalizing migrant workers, you best believe the Democrats will be. Then, in an effort to outdo the Democrats yet again, the Republicans go even further to the right of the Democratic consensus, which has already statistically gone further to the right than the right itself. Case in point, Obama has deported more migratory workers than Bush ever did, regardless of the type of crimes they committed or if they committed any at all. And the Republicans, in this case Lamar Smith, still come out against him and say he should get tougher, although he is undoubtedly more oppressive than Bush. And the crazy thing is, we get it confused that they are actually competing against one another when they are working for the same interests. The article goes on to quote Smith, who says that we could free up millions of jobs for Americans and legal immigrants if we enforced our immigration laws against illegal workers. You know, millions of jobs for everybody could be established if corporations were taxed, single-payer health care was adopted, and a $700 billion budget for the Department of Defense was cut, along with the trillions of dollars in bailout money given to Wall Street. But Lamar Smith and the rest of those who munch the diapers of the rich and blame problems on working people probably would never come to that conclusion because it is diametrically opposed to a profit over people ideology. But more on the war machine later. The Dream Act is dead. But then again, so is America. In an era of waning financial dominance and a military that is set on killing any brown or black target with a heartbeat, perhaps we should hold back some of those tears for not being able to be fully integrated into the infantile settler colony called the United States. And reflect, was that really ever the point anyway? According to the Washington Post, as of last Friday, congressional Republicans are pronouncing President Obama's proposal that the next Congress overhaul the country's immigration laws as dead before arrival. Congressional Republicans said in interviews Thursday that their concerns about the measure remain strong, and both House and Senate GOP leaders said they would fight any attempt to legalize any of the 11 million undocumented immigrants in the country before the administration secured the nation's southern border with Mexico. The larger point to learn from this turn of events, we feel, is that the DREAM Act was merely one episode in the larger continuum of a human rights struggle. We are fighting a centuries-long war of liberation, and the legal means that we have employed, in this case the DREAM Act, didn't pan out as some of us expected. A lesson that we can learn from this episode is that it doesn't matter what approach we take towards the racist right-wing enemy. They will never see us as human beings worthy of rights, not even when we plead to do its dirty work of frontline fighting in illegal wars for it. No matter what we demand, they will always call it amnesty and assume that they have the right to give and take our personhood away. We can cloak the language and do all the necessary messaging and framing techniques known to man, but the fact remains that these white folks stole our land and are now telling us what legal is and what legal ain't. When we realize that a thief has no grounds on which to lecture us about legality and illegality, we will be the more intelligent and creative freedom fighters for it. So rest assured, DREAM activists, the defeat of this pro-military, pro-college debt bill was but one means by which we could secure temporary relief for a certain sector of our community. It was not an answer nor a resolution, and it reveals some important contradictions within the immigrant rights movement that we should correct if we claim to be about human rights.
Going way back to the Clinton administration in the 90s, there was a recognition in the Pentagon that the largest military age group in the coming decades, really, was going to be Latino, just because of the way the population was growing. Demographically, we were going to have the largest pool of young people.
Jorge Mariscal is a Vietnam veteran and professor of Chicano Studies at the University of California in San Diego.
They also realized that our young people don't have all the educational and job opportunities that some other groups do. So that meant that we were a logical community to focus on. These things, in combination with the population growth, really meant that we had a target on our back as a community.
Latinos tend to do very well at basic training, not drop out of basic training so much as other groups. They tend to stay in the military longer.
Margaret Stuck is a lieutenant colonel in the U.S. Army, immigration law consultant for the Department of Defense, and a professor at West Point.
Many Latinos are comfortable with a more conservative or traditional lifestyle, I suppose you might say. They're not, they're able to handle a hierarchical military structure where people in charge will give orders and everybody else is expected to follow the orders. There are some communities that are less likely to be interested in that kind of lifestyle, but generally speaking, and again, this is generalization, Latinos adjust pretty well to that kind of lifestyle, and I think it's part of its cultural. One of the strategic goals for the Department of Defense is passage of the DREAM Act. Everybody who qualifies for the DREAM Act will get a temporary green card. That will let them enlist in the military, but it won't let them become officers. Their road to citizenship is likely to be pretty long because of the way the act is drafted. They don't get citizenship right away. And they will only be eligible to enlist in some jobs, the jobs that are open to non-citizens. You can't join the military police because you have to be a United States citizen to be a military police officer, but you can join the infantry. That's a job that's open to non-citizens.
One of the important things, too, is that if they choose the military, they may fill some important needs. The Department of Defense has come out several times publicly supporting this legislation. They understand that we need more young people to volunteer for the military. If these young men and women want to find their path to citizenship by risking their lives and swearing an oath to serve the United States in our armed services, I believe they should have that chance.
I think that's important for people who are interested in military service to understand that, the DREAM Act said after 2 years you can file a petition to lift the conditions, but that doesn't mean you get out of the military. Everybody who joins the Army today has an 8-year statutory obligation. You can lose your citizenship if you don't serve honorably for 5 years.
The danger of the DREAM Act is this, and we all support legalizing undocumented youth here who grew up here and have done nothing wrong here in terms of criminal activity. The danger is, as educational opportunities shut down, again, the military becomes the only viable option for getting permanent residency. So I'm afraid that we're going to see a lot of our youth driven into the military once the DREAM Act passes.
If they don't have the money to go to school or don't want to go to school, then the military offers an option for them.
If someone is desperate, can't find a job, can't pay for college, military options there, promise of permanent residency is there. It's just too attractive.
When we refer to a dream, memories of Martin Luther King Jr. come to mind. And in many ways, the migratory workers movement has been compared to the civil rights movement trajectory of the late 1950s and 60s. However, we must have a precise understanding of this history and not go along with the policies that would put us at odds with it. First of all, if we are claiming to be a movement about peace and justice, serving in the United States Armed Forces is directly opposed to that, being that the words "serving our country" is government-manufactured code word for killing and maiming in illegal wars that the majority of the international community, including many of our home countries, are against. As we are the descendants of indigenous peoples who resisted imperialism's first savage conquest of ancestral and sacred territories now known as America, Latin America, and the Caribbean, it behooves us to stand in solidarity with the world majority that faces poisonous U.S. policies of perpetual war and in clear opposition to the United States government, which Martin Luther King Jr. called the greatest purveyor of violence in the world today. In the final days before his assassination, King was talking about the violence of Vietnam and was assassinated for speaking out against that war while simultaneously attempting to unite the people on U.S. soil who were hurt most by investment in the war: poor black, brown, and white folks. But now the situation has multiplied into Israel, Colombia, Iraq, Afghanistan, Yemen, Pakistan, Somalia, and countless other nations who have felt the harpoon of Uncle Sam's military intervention. So for real, y'all, these are not our wars. And if we claim to be a nonviolent movement for justice, nonviolence and justice must apply to all peoples. We must necessarily break with the forever militaristic, always unjust behavior of the United States of America, enlisting in its wars, and worse off, using enlistment as some sort of bargaining leverage for unguaranteed citizenship is not only contradictory, but also goes against the majority of the world's opinion that the U.S. needs to calm the hell down for once in its life. There are several other ways to engage the common enemy of U.S. imperialism, which caused NAFTA and forces migration while simultaneously promoting war abroad in order to maintain geopolitical dominance over countries it claims to be liberating with freedom and democracy. The struggle is won.